In a world of seemingly endless podcasts comes what many would call another one. Welcome to the Two Men podcast with your hosts Tim Matson and Phil Powell. Now please join these two confirmed men, that's two moderately entertaining nerds, as they take you on another podcast adventure that's guaranteed to be funny. Or not. This week the two men talk about how to support the arts.
This is the beginning.
Welcome to another Two Men podcast with me, Tim.
And me, Phil.
It's good to be here with you today.
It's especially good.
It is especially good. I feel especially good. I've got my coffee. I've got my microphone.
I got my Diet Mountain Dew.
Who can ask for anything more?
What? I don't know what that's from. What is that from?
That's a popular song. Musical theater song.
Who could ask for anything? What's it from?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right.
It's a Gershwin song. It's I got rhythm. I got rhythm. I got music. I got my gal. I can ask for anything more.
I could ask for anything more?
Who could ask for anything more?
Okay. But what show is it from?
I don't think it's well. Actually, it ended up being in a show, "Crazy for You." Isn't that the musical it's from? It's just a collection of Gershwin songs.
Oh, you're right.
Because Gershwin was just a famous American.
He was the
writer of pop music.
He was the Stephen King of music.
I suppose so, except for his songs don't fall apart at the end.
Well, you know.
They haven't been, well, I don't know. It depends on your opinion of Crazy for You. They didn't get turned into an over-the-top production that was disappointing.
Oh, you're too hard on Stephen King.
I'm just right on Stephen King, I think. I think that his stuff is great, but hit and miss, to be honest.
Hit and miss.
Kind of like that van that ran over him.
Oh, my gosh.
That's dark.
All right. Well, we're going to see. I'm editing this week, so we'll see if that gets a good. You know what? Let's see if we can get Stephen King haters or lovers to listen to us based upon this inflammatory remark that Tim just made.
I love Stephen King. I am a huge fan of Stephen King.
Would you let him be on our podcast?
I would be thrilled to pieces. In fact, I would stop podcasting if he asked me.
Would you retract your statement?
I would retract that statement if he asked me to.
Okay.
He wouldn't even have to ask nice.
Yeah. You would just automatically issue a public podcast apology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would never podcast again.
Yeah, all right. Today's podcast is going to be about
how to support the arts.
How to support the arts, because you don't know. You don't know how to support the arts.
Many people don't, so I'm assuming that they just don't know how. That's why they're not.
It's a significant problem in today's society.
It is, indeed.
And Tim and I are here to educate you because Tim and I are both patrons, donors, philanthropists.
That's strong language.
Well, have you ever given any money to an arts organization?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've done that.
Have you ever hit the angel level of
No, I'm not an angel. I am no angel.
You're like whatever the theme is, like if you're
I'm like
producer,
the third string cheerleader.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, that's right. You're like in-kind services. You went and got sandwiches for a show one time.
There have been some in-kind donations before.
All right, so the major way that you can support your arts is to attend.
Yeah, put your butt in a seat and watch a show.
Now, the question that I have for us is, do we practice what we preach?
No.
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 So you do not attend art?
I do. Yeah. The thing is, this was something that was on my mind earlier today. I was thinking, why is theater still a thing? Because it doesn't seem like anybody really goes.
No.
So I don't know how anybody stays in business as a theater, as a going concern.
Yeah, it's kind of an ongoing weird proposition because got a bunch of people asking for money for the arts, and everybody gets divvied up their little slice, and then you survive on ticket sales a little bit, and patrons that donate this, that, and the other. You don't survive. I think the only reason that theater is around is because it's the best bang for your buck.
I think that's largely true, yeah.
It's less expensive than a movie, generally speaking. More people can participate publicly. It's problematic because people don't go to the theater.
Well, I think part of the problem with theater is they frequently is maybe a strong word, but they can sometimes forget that they should probably entertain their audience.
Yes. I think that starts at universities, which is to say that universities get away with doing stuff that is non-entertaining, believe you me.
Yeah, but that's the place for it, though. I mean, if you're going to...
But I mean, I think it sets you in a mindset. Both as a young actor and as an academician, that theater doesn't have to pay its own way, and it does.
Well, I think it 100% does, and I think that it's a necessity that they do these shows in theater because where else are you going to do Oedipus Rex? I mean, you're going to do Oedipus Rex in college and then never again.
I would put forth that productions of Oedipus Rex should happen spontaneously in college dorms. That Bob goes up and down the hall, passing out masks and phalluses, and says, "Hey, we're going to do a production of Oedipus Rex. Are you interested in playing Sophocles?" I think Sophocles? No, who wrote Oedipus Rex? Was it Sophocles?
I think so.
We should know this.
Well, we should know this.
It wasn't Aristotle.
No.
Did Aristotle write plays?
No, Aristotle was a philosopher.
But that doesn't mean he didn't write plays.
I mean, maybe some very dry ones.
Okay. I'm just saying, he might not have had time. He probably went to see them. His good friend Sophocles, probably.
Probably.
Not to be confused with Aeschylus. Or any of...
Which is another person we know of.
That's right. No, I know Aeschylus.
Our theater teachers are ashamed of us.
I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Aeschylus. But
Aeschylus.
No, Aeschylus, I totally remember Aeschylus because Aeschylus was the guy who did a play, was the first one that we know of that did a play with two actors.
Yeah.
And I really wanted it to be, you talk about a moment in history that if you go back and revisit, a lot of people would be about all the important things. I want to be in the room when Aeschylus pitched the idea to everyone else in the room that we should have two actors, be like, all right, I know we have the chorus. I know we have an actor. But what if we had two actors?
I'd go further. I don't think that he ever actually intended for there to be two actors. I think it was one actor and he forgot his lines. And so somebody from the chorus stepped up and just started doing some of his lines for him.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah, it happens on stage. You forget what play you're doing sometimes, even you're like, I've got nothing.
Well, see, early on, they didn't have very many plays, so you would think that they would have them all memorized.
No, you would think.
There's Oedipus Rex, there's Medea.
Antigone.
That's all we got.
All the hits.
That's right. Dramatists must have been starving.
You don't think there were more plays than this? I mean, surely there were more plays than this.
Well, I don't know, I guess. But I'm just saying is the royalties from dramatists and Samuel French, they would have been, it's like, all right, we got like 3 plays. Oh.
I mean, surely there were some really forgettable, terrible ones. It's like TV today. I mean, there's so many bad shows. Surely there was plenty of bad classical Greek theater that was just terrible.
You know what? There was, and they called those farces.
Oh,
they really did. It's like, I think they called it theater with no soul.
God, I've seen some theater with no soul, indeed. I've seen some good theater, too. I recently went back to my alma mater, back to Southern Illinois University. Yeah, to see a good friend of mine, Eric Billingsley, directed his very first show, Death of a Salesman. Start with something light.
Yes.
That's kind of classic American comedy.
Now, was it played by college students?
It was a community theater show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as you can imagine, community theater, pretty hit and miss.
Right.
But that's part of the excitement.
Right.
And this was actually really way better than I expected it to be.
Have you wanted to be Willie Loman ever?
Not until I saw the show.
Right.
This is one of the shows that you study in school, you read in class, you maybe do a scene from, and it's a classic American show that I've just never seen on stage. This is the first time I've seen it on stage. It was eye-opening, to be honest.
For a gentleman of our age, and moving forward even another decade or two. It's kind of an iconic role.
Yeah, it is. And I definitely want to do this show now. I really, really do, because they had a guy, honestly, you go to community theater and you kind of expect it to be okay. You know, I wanted this to be an okay show. This guy was really good. I was very surprised to see, an amateur actor of a certain age. A lot of times they're, just people who just miss doing theater.
Right.
And they're just not that great. There's a reason why they are not doing theater. But this guy really brought it. He was really good.
Oh, that's good. So you enjoyed the show. You supported the arts.
I did support the arts. I went a long way to support the arts. I drove from North Carolina to Illinois to support the arts. That's some support.
Do we support other arts, or are we art? What is it when you
art snobs?
What is it when you only want to art with an art you like?
I don't know, but I think that's fairly accurate. I'm not big on going to art shows. I don't really go to see dance performances.
Yeah. So you don't support you are
not.
You are
I do support short films. I like to go to see short films.
Yes.
If there's ever like a film festival nearby or a night of short films, I like to go do that.
All right. Okay. So you support film. You support theater.
Also, I have gone to see improv comedy. We have a good improv comedy group, the Idiot Box.
Yes.
Here in town, that does some good stuff.
You don't do that often.
No, I used to do improv comedy regularly,
right.
once a month. I did a show with a group called Comedy Salad.
Right. That's been a few years.
That's been a couple of years since that has happened. And it's funny, I dug through some old videotapes and I posted some video from a couple shows that we did ages ago. And now I'm famous among my kids' friends because they love it. They think it's hilarious. My son's friend Noah brought a friend over to the house specifically to show him Comedy Salad on YouTube.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
That is amazing, yeah, and unexpected.
I thought you were going to say that you were now getting threats from the other members of Comedy Salad.
Yeah, they want that pulled down.
They want it pulled down.
To be honest, I don't.
Has anyone untagged themselves?
I don't think so. I mean, the shows aren't particularly good. They're okay.
Well, here's the thing you don't know. A videotape of a performance is never an indication of how the show actually went.
No, that's true.
Because there's so many factors that go into how you perceive what's on video versus how you perceived it live that are different.
But I think that we are harming ourselves in the theater by not allowing it to be videotaped because there are so many performances and actors, great actors, that are lost to time because there's no record of their performance.
Yes,
I think that's a crime because I think that we should not look down at documenting this because these people deserve to be remembered, and you can't remember them unless you can show people what they did.
I totally agree, and I think it's a missed revenue stream. Now we're getting all serious, but I think that theater really has a problem, and this is a licensing issue that goes back a long way, which is to say that really, and if you look at it from a business model standpoint, it also does not work. I get it from a producer standpoint, but truthfully, I think that all performances you should be able to not only videotape, but sell the rights to streaming them internationally.
Well, that's been a thing because we've seen a couple shows from London's West End that have been broadcast in theaters here in the States. We went to see One Man, Two Guv'nors.
Right.
Which was really a lot of fun. But, it's something we wouldn't be able to see unless they had allowed this to be streamed to theaters.
Right. And there's cost involved because you have to do the production and all that kind of stuff, which is not inexpensive, believe me. But there's the question of revenue. But I'm even just talking about simply, which is to say, from a business model standpoint, it's a bad idea because think about it, maximum, okay, in most theaters. Okay, I've got 8 performances, 12 performances on the outside. If we sell out every seat in the house, what's the revenue model there? It's capped. Okay,
yes.
Even if I do well, it's capped. Can I run in another 2 weeks? No, because we didn't know it was going to do well and somebody else is booked. So the space is likely going to be used for something else.
I mean, you got to change it over to do the next show.
Right. You didn't anticipate that it was going to do this well.
Right.
But anyway, theaters are unfortunately not in that circumstance, generally speaking.
Mm-mm.
But
no, Unfortunately, no. That's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, they're not in that circumstance. But even in theory, even if their business model succeeded wildly, they would still have a problem.
And with all things, I think theater has got to evolve or die. Every part of the entertainment industry has been forced to evolve because of the internet and because of streaming and the instant access to entertainment options that Netflix and YouTube affords us. They've just got to change. They've got to rethink what they're doing and let go of a lot of old business practices.
If theater could evolve a third leg or wings, I think that would bring in a crowd.
Yeah, I would go watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. It would make costuming more complicated.
Possibly.
Probably have to raise the budget there. But I think that would I would go see that.
Okay, so we're talking about supporting the arts here. Let's we've gotten into some serious stuff here. Really kind of some material that really needs to be chewed over a bit. Let's maybe lighten it up a little bit. Have you ever supported something that you've regretted?
Many things.
Yeah.
Many things. I've gone to plays just because friends were in them and just because that was the case. And I mean, I can think during that time. So
I choose to use those moments to nap in the dark out there.
Oh, but see, don't you hate it though if it's a small house and the audience is lit?
I prefer for my audiences to be lit. I found alcohol helps.
Right. Well, there we are. No, but you can't nap then. It's harder.
Well, it's true. Back when I was an undergrad, we had a hard and fast rule of thumb as to whether or not your show was good. And that was whether or not the head of the department was asleep halfway through Act 1.
Yes.
Because that guy could fall asleep at the drop of a hat.
Right.
Dr. Christian Moe was a great guy, but he would fall asleep so fast. And we would always look out and see him. And if he's asleep in the audience, you're like, okay, I guess it wasn't that good.
Well, I think that's great. I knew a good friend of mine, Doc Clay. He used to fall asleep all the time. He used to fall asleep on stage as an actor.
I've almost done that.
Yeah.
I've almost fallen asleep.
Well, he had a show he was in where he was an actor, but he also died. It was called
Intentionally?
Foxfire.
Uh-huh.
And so they laid him out like his body. He was, in fairness to him, he was dead on stage a long time. Okay. And meaning like
I've been dead on stage a few times too.
That's more than that.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, he fell asleep one time just laying there. The other actors heard him.
Did he have any other lines or anything?
I think he came back at the end and said something. But it was, actors take their time. So, he's laying.
Some do, yes.
He's laying there and, they hear him snoring during a performance and he's supposed to be dead.
A snoring dead guy. I love it.
So they gotta kind of rouse him a little bit and make sure he's awake so that he gets up and does his line.
Well, that would be really dangerous because you don't want to wake him up abruptly because you don't want your corpse to sit up and be like, oh,
That's exactly. Well, so he would fall asleep. I always thought that he would be a great reviewer of plays. Because a rave would be barely napped.
Yeah.
That would be like barely nodded off. That's like oh my gosh, you stayed awake through most of it.
That's a huge hit.
That's fantastic. It could
give this show 2.5 pillows.
That's right. That could be your icon. And if you go to 5 pillows, it's
see, that's the thing.
It's a pan.
I would flip that and say that 5 pillows is a bad review because it kept you from having a nap. I mean, your goal is to go into a nice, comfortable, dark room where people are talking and then just kind of slowly drift off to sleep. And if they manage to stop you from doing that, that's a terrible review.
Have you ever thought maybe that's the major reason why older people tend to support theater?
Because it's a comfy, dark place to fall asleep.
Well, older people are always complaining about their inability to sleep. But in a theater, I would argue that your ability to sleep is strengthened by tenfold. It's
I'd imagine, yeah.
Theater is the greatest sleeping drug ever.
It's a great sleep aid.
You never hear doctors a prescribed theater.
Maybe they should. Maybe, they
That's
should
the
do
answer.
that.
That's how we solve the answer to the arts. If everyone with sleeping problems was prescribed theater.
Yeah. Well, there may be side effects, though. Well,
bored sleeping?
May contain heavy messaging.
May have an intermission. Yeah, actually, I think if you could use theater, see, that's why they should stream theater. If you could stream theater as you were going to bed at night, people would totally watch, or at least listen.
Right.
Hedda Gobbler, sounds good.
Yeah, I could sleep to that.
Yeah, that's right. Let me try and pay attention to this. Okay. Boom.
Nothing like a production of A Doll's House to just put you away.
Ibsen. Let me subscribe to any Ibsen.
Maybe a history play from Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Some very slow, vaguely English-sounding dialect. Just put you right away.
Theater. The solution to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I like it too. I think I could get behind that.
So jumping to support the arts. Have you ever been to opera?
If theater is Tylenol, opera is OxyContin.
You mean from a pain standpoint?
No, I mean from the ability to knock you out completely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it also is it dulls the pain.
Yes.
Because you don't understand what they're saying. You get that kind of like fog of like, I don't know what's happening.
There's a bunch of people. I think he's mad at her.
Yeah. It's like any kind of narcotic. You vaguely know what's going on, but not really. You don't follow things easily. People seem to be speaking in a strange language.
Yeah. You talk about putting a barrier between your audience, and it's like it's all going to be sung
in German.
Yeah, in language that you don't understand. Well,
no.
Have you seen the Nutcracker?
I've done the Nutcracker before.
Oh, yes.
Third grade humor.
Crotch jokes.
Jokes. It works for America's Home Videos.
That's right.
It may work for us.
I got to be honest. I think the Nutcracker is a boring story where there's no dialogue.
It is kind of boring, but it's also deeply, deeply bizarre.
It is.
It's really weird.
All of a sudden, there's a mouse guy.
No, they're rats, aren't they?
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a rat.
And then there's a rat king.
This sounds like the mafia to me. It's like there's the rat king and his henchmen, and they dance with the girl. That's weird.
The sugar plum fairies.
Yeah, that all sounds like a world.
Very weird.
If I said I wanted to suggested this as a show for children, I think parents, they would say, no, that sounds like a horrible show.
And isn't there like a creepy uncle that brings her a like life-size man Nutcracker that it's a prince? She's supposed to be a little girl, and he brings her this possible sex toy thing.
At the best case scenario, that uncle is eccentric.
I'd like to see the size of the nuts that they need cracked, that they need a Nutcracker that size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can remember as a kid, because I'd watched the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and then they were like, there was going to be a broadcast of the Nutcracker, and it was for children, so I thought this was going to be like a rip roar and hoot.
Yeah, no.
And then I watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Like, what is this?
All this is dancing. Nobody even says anything. So let me ask you a really controversial question. Do you believe that art should be separate from the artist? For instance, there's a lot of controversy about that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's really hard. Oh boy. That's a really good question. And this is actually something that I do wrestle with.
Yeah.
Because there are artists' work that I enjoy who turned out to be reprehensible people. Like, I think that Bill Cosby did a lot of art and a lot of comedy that I think is truly great comedy. And he did a lot for television and he did a lot for African-American people by actually bringing them into white households on a regular basis and making them part of their regular viewing habits. But at the same time, he's turned out to be a fairly reprehensible person.
Yeah.
That's really
hard. There's a lot of people like that, and it's a complicated question because
there's a long list of people. There's Roman Polanski, Woody Allen.
Right. Well, here's the thing that I think is true. We don't have any problem with it if it's historical, meaning like there's a lot of people who I'm quite confident were reprehensible people who are celebrated,
possibly,
who are celebrated artists. But we're not necessarily celebrating the person, and they gain no benefit out of that celebrity because they're dead.
Right.
Whereas I think we have a problem, and understandably so, with a living person celebrating anything that they did because they stand to benefit.
I think, honestly, you have to separate the art from the artist. I think that we as human beings are really fallible and prone to error and misjudgment. And this is not, to be clear, excusing anything that any of these people have done. But it doesn't make Rosemary's Baby a terrible movie just because a terrible person made it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, it's like the guy who was one of the informants for the
Elia Kazan.
Yeah.
So
which is kind of a weird arts twist where you had somebody who, in a sense, was betraying artists, and he was recognized by the Academy. And the question was put forth at that time: is this isn't about the man? This is about the individual.
Well, but that's where I have a problem because they were honoring the man. I think it's fine to honor his work. But I don't think that he deserves to get up on stage and receive accolades. Right. I think that you honor his work and don't invite him. I think that would have been the appropriate way to do that, is that you have a director who's made significant American films and his work stands the test of time and is worth rewatching even today. But he himself, I don't think he deserved the accolades because of what he did.
Right. And there's a lot of art that we have that, quite frankly, we don't know its origins. A lot of the art that hangs in museums. I don't mean, you think about archaeology. There's a lot of art that we have that, quite frankly, we don't know the truth of. We only know the end result.
And the further you go back in history, the more questionable it is that you know the real story about somebody, I mean, to impugn someone's reputation. Was Beethoven a child molester and we just didn't know it?
Right, yeah. We don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Unlikely. I think it's unlikely. I think you'd probably hear those stories, but it's possible. I mean, what if Bill Cosby had died before this whole controversy exploded, and then after he was dead, someone comes forward? I think this would be a whole different story.
Right. Well, you kind of noticed that we've kind of moved past, and I'm not making a commentary pro or con, but Michael Jackson's music is now played.
Yes, I distinctly remember after he passed, I had this distinct feeling of, oh, thank God it's okay to like Michael Jackson's music again, because he made some amazing pop music. I mean, there's a reason why he was called the King of Pop. Some great music. But once again, he lived his life under a cloud of suspicion and allegation and innuendo, much of which I suspect is true.
Right.
But he's also a tragic figure as well. And
right. But I guess what I'm saying is this has to do with when you die, I think it becomes different.
It does become different.
I think when you're living and you can benefit, this becomes a different circumstance. But when you're dead, and this podcast has taken a total uncomedic twist.
But I think it's worth talking about. We're all ultimately forgotten as people, but maybe if we're lucky, I think that speaks to why a lot of us participate in art, is that it's that grasp for immortality and the notion that we might be remembered for something we did, because we as individuals will surely be forgotten.
That's why Tim and I are betting on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm hoping this will be my ticket to immortality. Granted, it's a long shot.
Yeah, ticket to immortality.
Yeah.
Two Men podcast.
Yeah.
Goes together.
Yeah.
It does. It goes together.
Like peanut butter and spiders.
All right, it's time for everybody's favorite part of the show, Instant Opinion, where I give Tim one word or several, and he has to form an instant opinion. Are you ready, Tim?
I'm ready, Phil.
All right, the first word, old Priscilla Presley.
Old Priscilla Presley, still much more desirable than many out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Priscilla Presley has always been an attractive woman and remains so to this day.
You'd date her.
I would date Priscilla Presley.
Yeah, I'd date her too. I mean, I can't, of course, but I would, in theory.
Everything is in theory.
That's right. Bland lemons.
Bland lemons. That sounds like an old blues singer, Bland Lemon Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, Bland lemons, not really a thing.
Oh.
And I don't know how you would go about making a bland lemon.
Well, nature has stuff in it. I'm sure.
All I hear is Jeff Goldblum. Nature finds a way.
That's right. Cursed jewels.
Cursed jewels. The thing that you dread in every D&D adventure. You find some shiny gem. It seems to do something good for you.
Mm-hmm.
The second you put it on and you look like a troglodyte. The quickest way to bring your charisma down.
Is that... I always thought that was an unfair stat, charisma.
Charisma?
It was like being good looking and...
I think it's your force of personality.
All right, well, then I'm very attractive.
Evidently.
I have 18. Is that the
You have an
highest?
18 charisma?
I have an 18 charisma.
You must have rolled really well.
I did.
Wow, such nerds.
Belfried bats.
Belfried bats? That means you're totally sane, isn't it? Because you have bats in your belfry? Or no, that's when you're insane. Okay, so that makes you... belfried bats means that you're crazy as a bedbug.
I was just referring to the bats, and
Okay.
I was asking your opinion on the bats, but you were...
They're very lazy then, because they don't leave their belfry.
All right, Belfried. Well, they're homebound. They've got...
Homebound?
They're homebound.
Okay.
That's right. They have to bring in help. Casually dressed wizards.
Casually dressed wizards. I think that is... That's pretty funny. I love the idea of it being laundry day and Gandalf is wearing like sweats
Yeah.
and an old t-shirt while his robes are in the wash or
Yeah.
at the dry cleaners.
Yeah.
It's hard to take them seriously in like an old pair of shorts.
Yeah. No, you can't. You always have to be dressed as a wizard. Otherwise, how do you know? And how do you gauge how powerful they are? You can't tell.
Well, you can because the grungier the robes are, the more powerful they are, I think.
Right.
Because that implies a lot of time spent at the alchemy desk or something.
What?
You know,
Alchemy desk?
Lots of spilled
All right.
potions and things.
Pantyhose.
Pantyhose. I am pro pantyhose because that way the bank tellers can't tell who you are when you rob them. I don't know how you go about sizing those if you're like going to be a bank robber. I mean, do you pick like a size that you might actually wear, or do you pick ones that fit your head? I don't know.
You know, while I realize that it can obscure your identity, I do think that people haven't practiced being in pantyhose. They haven't practiced robbing in pantyhose, and as a consequence, they don't realize how much it impairs your vision. You know,
I'm sensing that you've tried this.
I have put pantyhose on my head. Have you not? Have
no,
you not?
I've never put pantyhose on my head.
You've never put pantyhose on your head?
Kind of tempted to now.
All right. Well, I'm man enough to admit that I put pantyhose on my
I
head.
don't think it's particularly manly or anything. I just think it's an interesting thing to do.
Well, I'm not saying that it's manly. I'm just saying that it's a thing that people do, like eating dog food.
It is a thing that people have done.
You ate dog food.
I don't see how that's relevant to the conversation.
All right, the last one. Immortal jellyfish.
Immortal jellyfish. stinging into eternity. I'm not for immortal jellyfish because eventually that just means that the sea is one big mass of goopy, stinging awfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I definitely don't look forward to.
Like you'd swim.
Well, you know.
Yeah. In theory, you'd swim.
In theory, I might swim.
That's right. And they might evolve wings if they were immortal.
Oh, we don't want that. Flying jellyfish?
Flying jellyfish.
No, thank you, sir.
Yeah. That's like, if they teamed up with flying snakes, humanity would be done. It would be over.
I would be the first man to Mars.
Yes. You'd have to get on the ship. I'd
be willing to make one just to get the hell out of here.
It's an elaborate ticketing process, as I understand. Right? Tesla has underway there. Well, that's it. That's the list.
That was it?
That was it.
All right.
You won. You won this week's prize.
I feel like a winner.
You look like it. You look like $30.
I look like $30?
$30.
I can't tell if I'm happy or not now.
It's
$30 is a fair bit of money, but it's also kind of small. I was feeling like maybe 60, 70 bucks, maybe.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Greetings. I am Alice, highly paid digital assistant to the two moderately entertaining nerds of the Two Men podcast. Want to let us know what you thought of the show? Have a topic you'd like to hear discussed? Feel like demanding your money back? We'd love to hear from you on 2 out of those 3 questions. Drop us an email at twomencast@gmail.com. In the meantime, please rate us and leave a review on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Also, for all discussions moderately entertaining, you can find us at facebook.com/2mencast. Please join us again next week when we'll be guaranteed to be funny. Or not.